Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. My name is Paladin Dance, and by popular request, today I'm going to be going over the Prod Paladin rotation. So I'm going to be doing a somewhat in-depth guide. I'm going to be going over the fundamentals, single target rotation, and then AoE situations. Now I can already see this becoming like a 15-20 minute video, so to condense it down as much as possible, I'm just going to try and get right into it. You guys can catch me at twitch.tv/PaladinDan. I have been trying to stream a little bit more often. I'm trying to stream a little bit more on Twitch, but I've been streaming on both Twitch and YouTube, although YouTube gave me a little bit of problems last time I did it, so maybe I'll try and stick to Twitch a little bit more. If I do, I'll try and announce it on YouTube before I go live on Twitch. Thanks to all you guys that are coming by the streams and hanging out with me. It's been really fun. And with all that said, let's get right into the fundamentals of the Prod Paladin rotation. Fundamentally, Prod Paladin comes down to being a resource builder and spender kind of class. So you're going to be generating your resources, and then you're going to be spending your resources on your resource spenders. Now, for Protection Paladin, your resource spender also happens to be your active mitigation. So that's going to be your Shield of the Righteous. You can also spend your Holy Power on Word of Glory. The only time you're going to spend your resources on Word of Glory are really when you're low on HP, but we'll get more into that later. So really, 9 out of 10 times, you'll probably be spending your 3 Holy Power, which is what either of these cost, on your Shield of the Righteous to keep up your active mitigation. Shield of the Righteous obviously is going to increase your armor by a buttload, which is going to in turn mean you're going to be taking less damage from melee attacks and all physical damage. Now the way that you build your resources is going to be through Judgment, Avenger's Shield, Hammer of Wrath if Avenging Wrath is up, or if your target is in execute range, which would be below 20% HP, and finally Hammer of the Righteous or Blessed Hammer if you spec into it. So if you take anything away from this video, I want you to know that ideally you just want to have 100% uptime on Shield of the Righteous. That is your main goal. Now I'll be going over how to optimize your rotation to make it so that you're doing the most amount of damage while also having the highest amount of uptime on Shield of the Righteous. But if you have trouble doing the rotation, if you have any confusion at all, just remember that the main thing is to build your Holy Power and have as much uptime as possible on Shield of the Righteous. So before we get into the actual rotation, I'm going to go to our spellbook over here just to touch upon some of the passives that are worth mentioning for the rotation. Now, as a Protection Paladin, it's very important to remember that we have Grand Crusader as a passive. And this means that melee attacks or Hammer of the Righteous have a 15% chance to reset the remaining cooldown on your Avenger Shield. So you will be getting Avenger Shield resets every once in a while, and we'll go into how you should use those later on in the video. You also have Shining Light, which is worth mentioning. Every 5 Shield of the Righteouses will make your next Word of Glory free. So after your 5th Shield of the Righteous, you'll have a free Word of Glory. There's a caveat to Judgment when you are playing Prod, and that is that it increases your next Shield of the Righteous's damage by 25%. So before you Shield of the Righteous, always try and get a Judgment off beforehand. This will change a little bit if you use the Bulwark of the Righteous Fury, but we'll get into that later. As Protection Paladin, you will want Consecration to be up essentially 100% of the time. That's because Consecration is going to give us many benefits depending on where you talent it into it and what conduits you use, but overall it's going to give us about 10% of our damage, I believe it is, in addition to generating threat and also making it so that thanks to Divine Bulwark, we take reduced damage while we're standing in our Consecration. Typically, I like to use Consecration at the very start of an encounter, so I'll place it down and then start my rotation. Or if I'm already running into a trash pack or something, I will first generate a Shield of the Righteous and then immediately use my Consecration. Now, after the encounter starts, you're going to use Consecration as filler. There will be many moments where you see that you have really no buttons to press except for Consecration. Go ahead, press Consecration to refresh the duration on it. I typically like to wait up until 1 or 0 seconds are left on my weak aura. Even if you're at 0 seconds left on Consecration, it still lasts for about an extra second, so you will still have an extra GCD to refresh the duration on it. If the duration of your Consecration is about to run out, do refresh it. It is the highest priority when it is about to run out. Aside from that, you can continue with your rotation as normal. It's important to note that for Protection Paladin, the way I suggest you play it is that you pool your Holy Power as much as possible while you're playing the class. So ideally, you're going to be around 4 holy power the entire time. You don't want to really drop below 2 holy power. And that is because when you are up here, you can keep your Shield of the Righteous up, and if you ever need to Word of Glory, you will only ever be 1 or 2 GCDs away from being able to Word of Glory. The benefit of pooling your holy power here is that whenever you Shield of the Righteous, ideally you'll have 1 or 2 holy power still in the tank, and you only have to build 1 or 2 more holy power in order to Word of Glory in case you get caught with your pants down. The converse of this is spending your holy power every single time that you get it, and in that case, if you ever get caught in a situation where you get chunked really fast and you need a heal, you won't have enough holy power to wog. So always pull your holy power as much as possible when you're playing the glass. So firstly, I'll be going over the single target rotation. This applies to any situation where you literally just have one target, so raid situations or boss situations in dungeons. The single target rotation for Prop Paladin is not that difficult. Judgment is going to be your #1 go-to. Judgment deals the most damage. It also deals as much damage as Hammer of Wrath, so whenever Hammer of Wrath is up, you're going to be using Hammer of Wrath first. If Hammer of Wrath is not up, you're going to be going to Judgment. After Judgment, you're going to want to use your Avenger Shield because it does the second most single target damage. And then finally, you will go to Blessed Hammer or Hammer of the Righteous if you're spec'd into anything that's not Blessed Hammer. Hammer of the Righteous and Blessed Hammer are going to be your filler essentially for single target situations and even for AoE situations. It does build holy power, so it is very important to use. However, it does the least damage out of all of your abilities. So single target situation is always going to be Hammer of Wrath if it is up, Judgment if it is up, Avenger Shield if it is up. If you get Avenger Shield resets, you can go ahead and use them unless Judgment or Hammer of Wrath is up. Even if you have a reset on your Avenger Shield, you still want to use Judgment or Hammer of Wrath because you're going to be doing more single target damage over the course of a fight than if you use your reset. After you use those, then you can go back and use your Avenger Shield resets. And then after that, the priority would just be to use Hammer of Righteous as essentially a filler. So for AoE situations, the rotation is going to change a decent amount, where Avenger Shield is now going to be your highest damage ability. In any situation where you have more than one target, Avenger Shield is now going to be your higher priority ability. It can jump up to 5 targets if you spec into First Avenger, which you should be doing for Mythic Plus at least. It generates a ton of threat and does the most AoE damage for Protection Paladin. Now if you're using the Holy Avenger's Engraved Sigil and you get resets for the Avenger Shield, you can go ahead and just keep pressing Avenger Shield. It's going to sound like this. You're just going to be pressing one button and one button alone, and it's going to feel really good. Holy Avenger's Engraved Sigil, probably my favorite legendary. If you ever get resets on Avenger Shield and you're using any legendary but the Bulwark of Righteous Fury, we'll go into that in a little bit, you can go ahead and use the resets on Avenger Shield. You have to remember that your Hammer of the Righteous and your melee attacks have a chance to reset your Avenger Shield. That means that if your Avenger Shield is not on cooldown, then you're missing out on chances to reset the cooldown on it. So if you are not in a single target situation, if you are in an AoE situation, you always want to use Avenger Shield off cooldown every single time, unless you're using the Bulwark of Righteous Fury, which we will get into. After that, then you're going to want to be using Judgment, obviously Hammer of Wrath over Judgment if Hammer of Wrath is up, and then you'll fill in with Hammer of the Righteous as always. Now in AoE situations, when you're using the Bulwark of the Righteous Fury, it starts to get a little bit more different. So it's very similar to the other rotation. However, if you ever do get an Avenger Shield reset, you're going to want to hold on to it unless you have 3 or more holy power. And here's an example of why. Say you have 0 holy power, you throw out your Avenger Shield, and you immediately get a reset. Well, you just hit 5 targets, which means that your next Shield of the Righteous is going to be empowered by your Avenger Shield. So what you're going to want to do is build your holy power up to 3 Shield of the Righteous and then use the reset on your Avenger Shield. Otherwise, you're going to be wasting the DPS, the potential DPS that you have from your Avenger Shield reset. Now this does mean that you can potentially miss out on some Avenger Shield resets while you are building your holy power, right? Because you're going to be meleeing and you'll probably use a Blessed Hammer in there to get to that 3 holy power, but it's not going to be nearly as much damage the damage of one Avenger's Shield compared to the damage of one empowered Shield of the Righteous with the Bulwark of Righteous Fury. The other caveat to the Bulwark of Righteous Fury is that if you ever have to choose between Judgment and Avenger's Shield before using Shield of the Righteous, you're going to want to use Avenger's Shield first, and that is because you want to have Avenger's Shield on cooldown as often as possible so that it's recharging as fast as possible. So for example, if you're in a situation where you have 4 Holy Power and you have Avenger's Shield and Judgment up, you want to use your Judgment to get that 25% extra empowered Shield of the Righteous, and you also want to get your Avenger's Shield off because you get that empowered Shield of the Righteous from your Legendary. So what you will want to do is use your Avenger's Shield, use your Shield of the Righteous, then use Judgment, which will put you back up to 3 Holy Power, and then you can decide to use Shield of the Righteous or pull up a little bit more Holy Power and then use Shield of the Righteous. You don't have to use Shield of the Righteous immediately after using Judgment to get that 25% extra damage. You just have to spend that Shield of the Righteous before you Judgment again. Anyways, that is going to do it for the rotation today, guys. If you have any questions, please leave them down in the comments below. Again, you can catch me at twitch.tv/PaladinDan. I'm going to be trying to stream more often. Thanks you guys again for coming into the streams recently and for almost getting me to 2K subscribers. I just hit 1K, but apparently now I'm almost at 2. I wish you guys a good day, and I will catch you all in the next one.